Yeah, so all these male philosophers like John Stuart Mill or Immanuel Kant, they built these vast moral systems. And they're based on abstractions, like don't use someone to get someone else. Like, that's a pretty good rule, but it's pretty abstract. And it's pretty like philosophical, academic. But along comes somebody like Iris Murdoch, who's a woman and who's learning from another woman named Simone Weil that the essential moral act is the act of attention. It's not like some fancy moral rule. It's like you're sitting in a coffee shop, you're sitting in a restaurant, you got your kid right in front of you. What kind of attention are you casting upon that person? And it's possible to cast a cold and aloof attention, in which case you're a cold and aloof person. If you cast the kind of attention which is looking for danger and threat, then you're going to find menace. But Iris Murdoch said our goal should be to cast a just and loving attention on others. Mm. So we see someone, we're going to see with the eyes of love. We're going to see with the eyes of compassion. And if we see with those eyes, we're going to call forth a different version of the person, a version that's more loving, more warm, more personal. And so the story I tell in the book is I'm in Waco, Texas, like, I don't know, it's probably like 3 or 4 years ago. And I'm having breakfast with a 93-year-old lady named LaRue Dorsey. And LaRue Dorsey presents herself to me as a strict disciplinarian. She'd been a teacher much of her life, and she said, I loved my students enough to discipline them. And into the diner walks a mutual friend of ours, a guy named Jimmy Durrell. And he comes up to our table. He knows us both. And he grabs Mrs. Dorsey by the shoulders, and he shakes her way harder than you should shake a 93-year-old. And he says to her, Mrs. Dorsey, you're the best. You're the best. I love you. I love you. And suddenly that stern disciplinarian that I've been talking to turns into a bright, eye-shining 9-year-old girl. Huh. And that's the power of attention. If you shine a certain kind of warm attention on somebody, you will bring forth a different version of that person.
So part 3 moves to I see you in your strengths. And one of the recurring constructs that you use throughout the book is this notion of illuminators versus diminishers, and which seems to be especially pertinent in part 3, I see you in your strengths. So talk to us a bit about that.
Yeah, so diminishers are people who are not curious about you. They don't make you feel seen. They make you feel invisible. They're just like they stereotype, they ignore. We all know people like that. And then illuminators are people who are curious about you. They ask you about you. They make you feel respected and lit up. And so an example of an illuminator is there's a novelist named Ian Foster who wrote in England in the 120 years ago. And his biographer wrote of him, to be with him is to be, quote, seduced by an inverse charisma, a sense of being listened to with such intensity, you had to be your sharpest, most honest, best self.
Huh.
We'd all love to listen with that kind of intensity. Often nobody's ever asked them. And so if you can ask people about their life story, you're giving them immense pleasure. You're giving them a chance to tell their story, which is a way to create their story. And you're learning a lot about them. So for example, when I'm listening to a life story, first thing I want to know is what's the narrative tone here? Every writer has an implied author, the person the writer wants you to think he is. And so some people have a sarcastic tone. Some have a pompous tone. Some have a knowing tone. So you learn a lot about a person. What's the tone here? The second thing I'm looking for when somebody's telling me their life story is, who's the hero here? Some people, their persona is, I'm the healer. I'm the person who comes into a family and I heal things. In some people, it's I'm the fighter. And then the third thing I'm looking for is, what's the plot here? And so all of us tell our story according to a certain plot. And some people, the plot is rags to riches. I was a poor boy, I made it. That's my plot. Some people, it's overcoming the monster. I had an abusive parent, but I overcame it. Or I struggled with alcohol, I overcame it. I'm overcoming the monster. My story, and I think for a lot of Americans in particular, it's a redemption story. I was going along fine. I suffered a big setback. I came back stronger. That's redemption. But if you don't have a story to tell, you can't know what to do. This is what Alistair McIntyre said. He said, you can't know what to do unless you know what story you're a part of. And if you know what your overall story is, then you can make the big decisions of life. And the novelist Isaac Dinesen said, all sorrows can be endured if they can put into a story.